What's up, everybody? I have my dear friend Ryan Haley from Funhouse here with me, and today we're going to be talking about the cultural phenomenon Barbenheimer. We're going to be talking about both movies. We're going to talk about our experience viewing them, what the event means as a culture, as well as what we thought about the movies. Ryan, how are you?
I'm doing so good, Jared. Thank you for having me on. We have not been face to face like this in months, I think. And you've
Yeah,
gotten
last time.
married since then. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank
I
you.
love it.
Thank you. Yeah, last time we spoke was for top movies of 2022, so we haven't caught up on any 2023 movies.
Damn, we're halfway through the year. More than. Wow. All right. Cool. Well, we got a lot to talk about then. Let's fucking
Yeah.
go.
So right now, so Ryan and I, we ran a movie podcast together for many years. We have intimate knowledge of each other's movies. Ryan is probably there's only actually I'll just say he's the only person I know well who's seen more movies than me. So I have
Boom.
profound interest and trust in his taste. So first of all, I just want to hear what was your movie going experience? Did you decide to do the Barbenheimer? Did you do the Oppenheimer? Did you do the McBarben Oppenheimer gangbang?
That's a great question. So I did the Barbieheimer, which I still
You
maintain
did.
is the superior way to experience it. Even but we'll go into that. For one, oh yeah, I was literally on another Barbie Oppenheimer podcast earlier today on Funhouse.
Okay,
And
nice.
so this is, but it was a good warm up, and I didn't feel like I articulated my points as well on there. So this was, I'm glad that I get a retry here. Um,
Okay.
anyway, so yeah, I did the Barbieheimer, okay, and I went and I had Barbie tickets for 11 a.m. I was gonna have it at noon, and then have I had the 2 p.m. IMAX 70 millimeter Oppenheimer.
At City
Uh,
Walk?
no, at Man Chinese, right?
Okay.
And so we were going to do it at noon, and it was going to have a 6 minute gap in between movies, right?
Mm,
Literally, like with trailers and all. So that was cutting it close, but I was like, maybe that'll be good. But then finally, that I got scared of that because sometimes IMAXs don't have as many trailers and all that. So then we moved it to the 11 a.m. So I'm not used to getting up at 11 or 10 o'clock a.m. on a Saturday, but I did it for Barbie Oppenheimer Day. It's a big day. And yeah, so do you want me to get into what I thought of the movies now, or do you want to, or how did you see it?
so I did the opposite. I did the Oppenheimer,
You
and
motherfucker.
well, I'm actually
Well,
curious
good.
to
I'm
hear
glad that we have that, buddy.
what your thought process was, unless it was the same thing that you mentioned in your video, which I recommend everyone watch if they haven't already. It's very funny. I mean, my thought process was simply, and I think that we've discussed this before. I mean, I love Christopher Nolan.
Hmm.
I am not very familiar with Greta Gerwig's work, and I've never enjoyed a Noah Baumbach movie. In
Okay.
fact,
Even
most
Francis
Noah
Ha.
I haven't seen it.
Okay.
Well, wait, is that both of them or just Gerwig?
Greta Gerwig stars in it, but Noah Baumbach directed it. It's a black and white movie. I really love that movie. That's the only one I truly really love. The rest
Okay,
I like a lot. I
so
probably like them
most
more than you.
Noah Baumbach is actually one of the few filmmakers that I'll turn off one of his movies. In fact, I turned
Uh-huh.
off Marriage Story 10 minutes in, Kicking and Screaming I couldn't handle for more than 10 minutes. I just I think that I'm allergic to parts of his writing. I think that he's always trying so hard, bending over backwards to be clever, and it it's just not in alignment with my taste. I'll just say that.
Okay.
So because of that, I said, all right, well, I want to see Oppenheimer first because I love Christopher Nolan. I'm going to be fresh. I'm going to be alert. It's a movie that I want to be able to study and pick all the pieces and be able to come up with perhaps like an interesting analytical side to it. So I decided to see Oppenheimer first, and and basically just to simplify it, it was the movie I thought I had the highest chance of enjoying. And then I actually had like a two
Interesting.
hour layover. So I saw Oppenheimer. I saw it in the biggest IMAX screen in Helsinki, which is still not as big as City Walk, unfortunately, and I didn't learn that until I got there. But it was totally packed, and actually both theaters were totally packed. And I'd be interested to hear what the demographic was like in Hollywood, because in Helsinki, the it was like 12:30 IMAX Oppenheimer was all a bunch of film nerds, and it
Hmm.
was a really great screening. Everyone was really respectful. And then when I saw Barbie, both of them were sold out, but Barbie was full of a lot of like teenage girls, and which makes sense, right? And it kind of like that was the first sign to me where I was like, well, I don't know why I expected this to just be a bunch of ironic internet nerds. Of course, it's going to be a bunch of teenage girls, and of course, the added fun is that here in Finland, all the women look like Barbie. So it was like going to see Barbie with a bunch of Barbies.
And were they all in pink?
A lot of them were, yeah.
Nice.
So I had like 2 hours to percolate on Oppenheimer before I went into Barbie. But yeah,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
let's talk about just our general thoughts about the two movies, because then
Well, hold on. I was going to just speak on what you just said. You know, my
yeah,
logic of why I did what I did, because it was like to me, I knowing Christopher Nolan and knowing just the gravity of the themes in Oppenheimer, I was like, this movie is going to be 3 hours fucking long, and you're not. And I was like, I'm not going to want to do anything after I see Oppenheimer. And I feel like if I was like, oh shit, there's another movie after this, like I feel like I would, you know, maybe not like Barbie as much as I could. And I'm really excited for Barbie, or was. And so I was like, all right, let's just see Barbie go start the day off with a bang, you know, have a fun movie. And then it's like, oh yeah, then we have can settle down for the 3 hour slog that will be Oppenheimer, you know.
slog.
I didn't mean,
All right.
well, okay,
Well,
that's not the right
okay.
word. I was really
Before,
excited for
but
Oppenheimer too. I thought that movie was going to blow me away. But anyway, we'll get into that.
so I think we should do like old time's sake. Let's guess what we would rate the movies.
Okay, let's do that. Yeah, that's fun.
Okay, so I haven't seen the Funhouse podcast, so I have no idea what your thoughts are on either one of them. So I'm going to guess that you're going to give Oppenheimer an A. And with Barbie, man, it's a real 50-50 for me. I mean, your shirt right now makes me think that you loved it, but I also think that there's a good chance that you didn't like it. And unfortunately, it's become it's become like a tribal identifier where people are kind of like strategically positioning their opinions on the movie as not to overlap with certain unsavory figures in the culture war. So I don't think you're one of those people who manicures their opinion for that, but I mean, it's just a reality. So I'm going
Uh-huh.
to guess you give Oppenheimer an A, and I think you're going to give Barbie. I'll go for the charitable one. I think you're going to give it a B.
Okay. And can you hear me right now?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. And I think you are going to give. I'm going to guess that you are going to give Oppenheimer an A and Barbie a C or D. Maybe a
Okay.
C. I'm going to go C. And so I'll just say right now, you were wrong about me. I
Okay.
went in with the expectation that honestly, as much I was excited about Barbie, I do like Greta Gerwig a lot. I think she's really cool, interesting filmmaker. But the trailers really put me off. Kind of, I watched them all, and I was like, I don't know, man. This movie kind of looks like it has a weird vibe that or whatever. Like, and so I was kind of bracing myself to be kind of annoyed and not really like it. And then Oppenheimer, I was expecting to be blown away and fucking love it, and be one of my favorite Christopher Nolan movies. And I would say at the end of the day, I liked Barbie so much more than I ever thought I would. I thought it was genuinely hilarious, way more funny than it had any right to be. I thought the world building and just how they went about everything was really cool. Yeah, we can get into the whatever you want to call it, social political statements in it and stuff that which did get a little slightly annoying and preachy at sometimes, but also sometimes I thought it was cool and interesting and clever. So it's like we can nitpick it, but also it's a Barbie movie, so I feel stupid even going like nitpicking the metaphors in this movie. But because at the end of the day, it was just super fucking fun. I had a great time. It was like what I want to go to the movies and see with a packed house, and that it succeeded on lots of levels. It was great. Greta Gerwig killed it. And then Oppenheimer, I was a little disappointed in, like, to
Really?
be honest. Yeah, like I liked a lot of it. I would say I definitely ended up liking it. So I would give it a probably B minus at the end of the day. But I just thought there was just so many weird choices, and like the length, real like it was punishingly. It did not need to be 3 hours, in my opinion. Like he has
I'll
got,
agree with that.
yeah, like fuck we can go into a whole other podcast about, you know, when we have before about my hatred for 3 hour movies, unnecessary 3 hour movies. I love a lot of 3 hour movies. You know, we both love Wolf of Wall Street, whatever. This one did not need to be that. And the bomb was cool, but not enough bombs. Give me more bombs. It's a bomb movie. I needed more bombs. Sorry. And then even the bomb we got, which was amazing, not as impressive as I even thought it was going to be, to be honest. You know, that scene was kind of cool, but I don't know. It's kind of didn't even seem
Definitely
as big,
did not linger.
Yeah, did not linger, and it wasn't that big, which is probably, you know, true to history, but whatever. It's a movie. Anyway,
Well,
those are a few of my gripes, but yeah. What are your
all right.
overall
Well,
impressions?
that's great. This is going to be an interesting discussion because I really do feel the exact opposite. And
Okay.
basically, I loved Oppenheimer. I thought that it was a very interesting double feature with Barbie. And this is going to sound condescending. And let me just say, I would give Oppenheimer at the lowest an A minus,
Okay.
mostly because I think that the movie really is very dense. It's very rich in theme. It's got great performances. Oh my God, Gary Oldman is so good. That
Dude, I
one
did not
scene
know
is,
that was Gary Oldman until after the movie.
oh my God. Oh, I knew it immediately, and I was just like, oh my God, give me a whole movie of this, please.
That was crazy.
uh, the performances were amazing. Best Robert Downey Jr. performance in a decade. And I think that the movie was just real. It was just very interesting to think about. I made a video on my channel that if anyone hasn't seen it, I recommend seeing it. It was like my analysis of Oppenheimer. And I think that it fits really well into his previous work, and it kind of develops the Nolan philosophical thesis. So just like as somebody who likes to engage with the work of filmmakers who are serious thinkers, this was a buffet for me. It was so great. And I thought it was impactful. Yeah, it was long. And there were times, I think like the two criticisms that I agree with are one, that it is a bit too long. There definitely could have been parts that were cut. And I did find myself saying, you know, oh, this is kind of dragging a little bit, maybe once or twice during the movie. But for the vast majority of it, I was completely enthralled. And the second thing is that someone told me that they thought that the sound was a little bit overbearing, and that the music
Yes.
was just breaking the illusion because it was too bombastic, it was too over the top. And although like that didn't bother me when I was watching it, I do recognize that there were a couple times in the movie that I did recognize, yeah, okay, the music is getting, I'm noticing the music here, and I shouldn't be noticing it. I should just be completely inhabiting the subjectivity of Cillian Murphy's Oppenheimer.
But
So
oh,
yeah.
sorry. But to just jump in there, like we got to talk about the audio because fucking Christopher Nolan is out of his mind with this stuff. Like, I actually didn't notice the music as much as you did. We're just saying, but the audio, like if you remember Tenet had terrible audio and everyone gave it shit. And I just thought it was because I was watching it on the drive-in during the pandemic. But like,
Mm,
no, you literally couldn't hear the lines of dialogue because it was so optimized for, you know, whatever Christopher Nolan's
for
perfect
IMAX or
studio
whatever.
at Warner Brothers that he watches it on. But for you couldn't hear it, and this same thing was happening during during Oppenheimer for me several times during the movie, where I'm at, literally one of the most state of the art cinemas in the country, the Man Chinese Theater, and I'm like craning my neck, like being like, is it because of where we're sitting that I can't hear that well, or what? But I talked to other people after the movie, and they said that they couldn't, that there was lines that they definitely were missing too. So
Well, we've discussed
Chris
this
Nolan's
before.
crazy.
That we discussed this before, that Christopher Nolan actually, and I think there's a lot of wisdom in this, that Christopher Nolan believes that you don't have to mix dialogue to actually discern the meaning of every word, because to him, cinema is an operatic experience where the music, the visuals, the emotion, and the character's tone, that will carry you through what you need to understand in order to get the impact of the movie. That was when Mission Impossible 4 came out, and we saw that first sneak peek in the IMAX of the opening scene of The Dark Knight Rises, we saw Bane for the first time, and he was like, and you couldn't understand anything. And that
Right.
was his defense. And everyone said this is the dumbest thing ever. And I understand that. But I also think there's some wisdom there that, especially when you're doing an IMAX experience, yeah, it is a complete orchestra of the senses. It's not just, I understand the words.
No, but okay, at least with Bane, he has the excuse that this character wears a mask. So yeah, sometimes it might be hard to hear him. So okay, that makes sense. But this is just regular, people talking, and it's like such naturalistic dialogue, like you can hear the bass and the air and stuff along with the crazy bombastic music that you should, if people are talking, you feel like you need to understand what they're saying when you're watching the movie, and if you don't hear it, then you feel like you're missing something. And if Christopher Nolan thinks that that's somehow cinematic, he's wrong. It's like,
Yeah, but what are you missing? I mean, I know you don't know what you don't know, but I think that at the end of the day, you walk
right,
away from the movie and I think you understand what the character went through. You understand the
okay,
premise
but
of the movie.
that is, but that's
I
like
mean, I
saying,
get it.
that's like
I
saying,
get it.
yeah,
Like
if you took
it's
out
definitely a
every other
pretentious thing
scene
to
of any other
say.
movie, yeah, I don't know.
It's a
What did you
pretentious
say?
thing to say. It's a pretentious thing for him to say. I get it. People who are critical of that stance that he has, it makes sense. I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's bad stance.
I guess I'm just willing to say, like, okay, I see where he's going here. And hey, if one of the greatest filmmakers of our age, which I still think that you'd agree that he is, wants to take a wild swing and maintain a posture that's largely against public opinion, then hey, I think we can grant him that.
Well, I related a lot to like the Peter Jackson high frame rate, Ang Lee high frame rate thing, where it's like they're pushing that so hard. Like, come on, guys, this is the next wave of cinema, and audiences universally are like, no, we don't like this. It looks like shit, and they don't do it. Thank God. And at least James Cameron has like perfected it. Whereas this audio shit that Christopher Nolan thinks is awesome is so not good, and I hope he learns that by his next movie that
Well,
we don't
the
like it.
the distinction I would draw is that high frame rate destroys the illusion because it looks too much like real life. It looks like characters have tungsten light bulbs shining at the back of their head. It breaks the illusion. Whereas I don't know, in you hear people mumble regularly. I mean, I guess I can see both ways. If you hear someone mumble in a movie, you realize that you're watching a movie because you're like, wait a second, I need to understand what he just said in order to understand the trajectory of the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I guess I would say that people don't speak clearly all the time, and that's kind of how we would project our
Yeah, if he
understanding of
was
how
more of a
conversations
cinema
work.
verite kind of naturalistic filmmaker, maybe, but he's pretty not that.
Yeah,
So when it
yeah,
happens, it's like, what's going on? Anyway, we can move
yeah.
on.
Okay,
Um,
so with Barbie, I really, really did not like it,
okay,
and
I was wondering.
and
So,
and
what grade do you give it?
I got to be honest, I find very little redeeming about it. But this is just my taste. First of all, like I just want to say up front that uh, when people say that they like it, I get it, but I struggle to really find redeeming qualities because it's not just the politics. We can get into the politics, but really, I'm not really that interested in talking about exactly the messages that the film wanted to put forward. Really, I just think that the way that it was implemented was just bad. A lot of it has to do with the fact that I just don't find it funny, and I have never found this kind of like indie mumblecore which Greta Gerwig kind of came up in. Like, for example, it's not only her but the Duplass brothers. I've never enjoyed a Duplass brothers movie. I just
Uh-huh.
don't like kind of very like there's another movie. It's like pre-mumblecore, but it's called Igby Goes Down with Kieran Culkin. I hate that movie. Any movie in which there is dialogue that's so clever, or at least thinks it's clever. See, Barbie is one of those movies where there's really only one character, and the character is the writer. Because
Uh-huh.
like all the characters in the movie are caricatures. There's not even any uh the characters say things that are completely in violation of their character, because it doesn't matter that we're creating a consistent world of characters that we can project onto and identify with. The movie is more of a video essay, which again makes it so that
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
go
sorry.
ahead. Well, no,
Well,
I feel like the movie's
finish
more
your
of a
point.
video essay. So for example, like there's that point in the movie where Ken goes up to a guy and says, "Hey, I want a high-paying job," and the guy says, "Oh, well, patriarchy isn't really a thing anymore, but actually it is. We're just really good at hiding it." Again, like, that's a caricature. That's the writer just positing what he wants you to derive from the scene. No character who actually, if we're to believe, is in this position of power, nobody actually believes that they're only there because they're a man. And I know that, and this is just, that's one gripe, is that it really is just somebody positing what they think is fashionable, what they think is, basically a political message, no matter how you put it. But the other thing is that, even if I feel like, I find the movie very smug because it feels like it does not need to actually exhibit the problems of this world, or of, let's say, patriarchy. So, for example, like the movie um, Promising Young Woman. I really like that movie. That's a movie that criticizes patriarchy. There's a woman, she gets sexually harassed, but she's in a world of these boys club dudes, and even the wives of the boys clubs people are so compromised by the wealth that they enjoy in that society that nobody can help her, and she's just hopeless. Okay, that's a movie that criticizes patriarchy. How many times do they actually say the word patriarchy in the movie? Zero. In this movie, when Ken goes to the real world, he sees some frat dudes catcalling people, and then he sees some guys working out at the gym, and then he goes into a business, and he sees people in suits shaking hands, and then on the wall he sees a montage of Stallone and people playing sports. Let me ask you seriously.
Uh-huh.
Before Ken got the books and said, "Wow, patriarchy is the coolest thing ever," did you actually understand that what Ken thought was so cool was the nature of the male dominated society? Because I don't think anyone can honestly say that, because I don't think it's communicated well.
You
When he
mean
sees guys,
in those clips, like the random clips you're watching, you're saying?
the clips he's watching, basically Ken is walking through America or Los Angeles, and he
Uh-huh.
sees people shaking each other's hand. He sees dudes working out at a gym. And from that, he derives that, okay, this is an entire society dominated by men. My point is that it's all, it breaks the cardinal rule of show, don't tell. I think that the overall, like the gendered political message that a lot of people are complaining about, I mean, that's one thing. But I think the cardinal sin is that the movie just smugly posits that, oh, well, patriarchy is so omnipresent that I don't even need to convince you. I don't need to actually dramatize that it's a problem. I can just show you guys working out at the gym and images of Michael Jordan, dunking a basketball, and that should be self-explanatory. But it's just lazy filmmaking.
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to tackle everything you just said.
Yeah.
Um, so kind of what you're saying, especially about that the writer or whatever is the main character. Yeah, and I kind of love that about the movie. Like, it is that, but they've kind of set the world up for it to be that. In my opinion, that like Barbie world, for one, doesn't really have to make a ton of sense, because essentially it's like from the point of view of, like, if a 4-year-old wrote this, it has the rules of just a child playing, like with the whole the water not existing in the shower and stuff. It's like there's all that, which to me it's just that it's a whole open world for them to play in, which I thought they did really fun, really well. And they had tons of gags that I was cracking up at personally. I mean, I guess it's a taste thing,
Yeah.
but
Right.
like, yeah, then, but, and the one criticism that it seems to be that I do have, that I agree with you about, is that the real world was too cartoony, or I say too cartoony. It just kind of, if they're trying to make a big point, it's kind of like, yeah, like that kind of muddies the waters, when like the real world is really just not even the real world. It's just kind of like a hyper realization cartoon of the real world, whatever. Yeah. So I kind of agree with you there. However, even, yeah, at the end of the day, it is just a kind of ironic, whatever you want to call it, meta, almost like South Park episode-esque tale, told from, this feminist perspective, however you want to characterize it. Like, yeah, it's somebody's point of view of the ultimate patriarchy world, that is the opposite of the idealized Barbie feminism world, and kind of, so she has to contrast those two. So I get why she did it, and I do think it honestly kind of works. Like, but yeah, does it make sense from, like you're saying, like
It's
a
not about
critical point of
making
view?
sense. It's about showing, not telling.
Oh, and then I was going to get to that too. Yeah, she does a ton of showing, not telling, and I would
Or
say,
telling, not showing. She does the telling,
right.
not
Yeah,
showing.
she does
Yeah,
telling
yeah.
and not showing. She, as far as even having a narrator there, explaining part of it. And yes, like, do I want every movie to be as telling and not showing? No. But do I think it works for the Barbie movie? I do, kind of. Like, it's supposed to be this fun. It is just a fun party movie, basically, which I do think I give them a lot of leeway to basically have stuff like narration telling you stuff. Kind of, I wouldn't, not cramming down their message, but just kind of like telling you explicitly with a sledgehammer, this is what we want you to think about when you leave the theater. Like, yeah, I don't think that's great storytelling across the board, but I think it works for this movie in a way. Not all the time, and like I said at the beginning, I think it does get sometimes too just a little preachy propaganda-ishy even. But like, whatever, I kind of liked it in spite of all of that. Like, I thought that the rest of it, especially the beginning, was so fun and colorful, and they're giving me everything I wanted out of this Barbie movie. That, yeah, they can do whatever they want in terms of what you're talking about, and it didn't bother me as much as I guess it bothered you.
Well, I think a
Does
lot.
that
I
make
mean,
sense?
a lot of the things that yeah, it does make sense, and I think it really just kind of boils down to, were you charmed by the jokes? Were you charmed by the
Yeah.
beat to beat comedy? And again, I've never been able to enjoy Baumbach, and so I just didn't. I did not find really anything funny. And I think that's just perhaps my sense of humor. And I think really, once the writer reveals themselves too much, I'm off board. And I understand what you're saying. Like, not all movies have to be what I'm saying, in that, you build a world, you invite the audience to believe in that world, and you believe in those characters, and then you kind of inhabit that world, and my emotions get caught up in the dynamics of the world. And this is a movie that very much violates that. It's very alienating, because we're not even supposed to take the plot seriously,
Mm-hmm.
which is fine. Some people can enjoy that more than others. It's just for me, once the writer reveals himself, it's a great contrast with Oppenheimer. With Oppenheimer, first of all, I think that it's a massive leap forward in terms of the different styles that Nolan can execute well, because it does kind of feel a little bit more like a Fincher Sorkin movie at times, minus the audio. But in terms of just, a lot of people sitting down yelling is what I like to call it. And I thought it was absolutely riveting. And that's a movie where, when it's working, you feel like you've completely inhabited the subjectivity of Oppenheimer, and you live in that world, and all of the messages of the film are very subtly baked into the drama. So, the writer, in a sense, doesn't reveal themselves. And I think that Nolan is more of a filmmaker who really, very strictly, will never do something that egregiously meta. He'll never make a piece that's more a video essay than a movie, because for him, the magic of a movie is that you benevolently fool the audience. Like Angier says at the end of The Prestige, that's what makes movies or magic tricks or ideas so magical. And I largely agree with that. That's part of the reason I love movies. I want you to, basically ragdoll my subjectivity and throw me into this world. Barbie is very much a movie that refuses to do that. And for me, once a writer reveals himself so explicitly, and I feel like I'm just watching the kind of self-congratulatory, quote unquote, clever musings of a writer who obviously thinks he's very smart, I can't. Like, I just can't. I can't engage with it. I can't enjoy it.
Damn. Roasted, barbecued from Jared Bauer. Well, it wasn't just Noah Baumbach. It was Noah Baumbach and Greta Gerwig.
I know, and the only reason I'm picking on Baumbach, is because, A, I don't know Gerwig's work very well, but B, that this is the same problem I've had with his other movies. Like, have you seen Kicking and Screaming? Not the one
Yeah,
with Will Ferrell.
I know what you're talking about.
So I had to turn that movie off in 15 minutes, because, again, these are not sentences that never mind real people, but even that characters would say. This is a writer who's just trying to be as clever as he can with witty dialogue. And I think that even if you look at a movie from Howard Hawks, who was a master at dialogue, he still builds worlds and characters that are believable enough to where you would not only think that, oh, this dialogue is very quick and witty, but he also builds a world and characters that are appropriate for that, and it doesn't really break the fourth wall.
Would you say that about Tarantino too, with his weird ass
Well,
dialogue?
sometimes when it's good, like I think
Yeah.
that Death Proof is the worst example of that. I think Death Proof is not a good movie, and
So
it approaches that.
I find this interesting because like you infamously, one of your favorite, not infamously, but you love Woody Allen, and he's like to me one of the most like Woody Allen just screams through every line of every character. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
I guess would you make the
No, you're
argument that he
absolutely
just
right. And I think that's kind of the conclusion I'm coming to with this movie is that, um, look, I found it to be quite mean spirited in the way that, it kind of just like just people have called it misandrist. And I think that, well, we don't have to, cause a fuss about it. But I think that there's a valid argument to be made that the movie is really mean spirited towards men. However, I'm fine with that. I love mean-spirited comedy. I love South Park.
yeah.
Now, not every
So the
movie.
South Park
In
episode.
fact, I want more mean-spirited stuff. And by the way, not every mean-spirited thing has to cater to my proclivities. We can be mean-spirited about things that maybe don't resonate with me as much, and that's what this movie is. I think the problem is that, I mean, if we're being realistic about this, we find ourselves in a cultural moment where we're only really allowed to be mean spirited these days. Of course, South Park has been violating this for 30 years and probably still can, but largely Hollywood is only really brave enough to be mean spirited against, certain identity markers. And unfortunately, the analysis is completely on identity and not at all on class.
Just wait for
Uh,
the Kin movie where the
the what
Kins
movie?
take over. The Kin movie.
Oh, Ken. Okay.
Yeah, it'll be
Yeah.
the exact inverse of this.
Yeah, maybe that would actually be
No.
pretty cool. If they just kind of like
I was
took the
kidding.
criticism and kind of like, oh, I'm not. You know how much money this movie's making? It might
No, I
happen.
know. There will absolutely be a kid movie at some point, but I doubt that they have it to where the men rule the universe, and then at the end,
Yeah.
that's where it returns to.
So you bring up a good point that, and by the way, like a lot of the Woody Allen movies, I haven't seen in like 15 years, and I actually have been avoiding seeing a lot of them because I have such good memories of them in my mind,
I
and I
hear his next
wonder.
one's supposed to be amazing. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay. Yeah, and I wonder if maybe I've outgrown them. But you bring up a good point, and that is that maybe people are more willing to hear explicit messaging of things that resonate with them more than they're not. And I believe that. I would say, however, that with, for example, Annie Hall, yeah, Woody Allen breaks the fourth wall. Yeah, he kind of trivializes the world he's built every once in a while. But at the end of the day, you still really believe that Annie Hall and Woody Allen's character are a real couple. And, you feel the pain that Woody Allen's character feels when they break up. Like they take the plot seriously. In this movie, it reminds me a lot of, did you see the Weird Al movie last year?
Yeah.
Which I found funny, but at the end of the day, I feel like the movie was so sarcastic that it kind of imploded on itself. Whereas, like, the plot, you can't just sarcastic, like, the whole thing of Kate McKinnon saying that, oh, there's a time space continuum rip, there's a portal. Well, there's not really a portal. The whole thing is that the plot is a joke. You're not supposed to care. And I think that that's a mistake. I think that, you can be as self-effacing and as trivializing about some things, but if you're not even asking the audience to believe in why the movie's story is moving forward, then you're just giving them too many reasons to disengage, at least in my opinion. Like the
I
plot in Woody Allen movies is serious. Maybe there are some stylistic elements that break that seriousness, but overall we're meant to take the movement of the story seriously. With this, even that is a joke. And it's the same with the Weird Al movie.
Yeah, but and it did bug me in the Weird Al movie because I mean, while I love movies, like Airplane or something, where it's just joke, 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 the whole movie is a joke. Yeah, sometimes at a certain point, it was just kind of them trolling us for caring about, for
But even in
wanting a normal
Airplane,
biopic. Oh,
even in
sorry.
Airplane, like, there's a real risk that the airplane is going to crash. They
Sure,
never
yeah.
trivialize that.
Bad example. All I'm saying is that to me, the reason that this movie, I like the fact that they're not taking even the plot seriously, is that at the end of the day, it is the Barbie movie. It is like a movie about dolls, and I'm not just saying that like, oh, like, who cares? I'm saying like it's literally a movie about playing and imagining and pretending with dolls, and so as a child, so I like coming from thinking about it from that perspective, the writing, like especially in the Barbie land, from like, yeah, like when they are just doing stuff, that when she says the thing about, oh, the portal and stuff, and it's just like lazy, like, okay, yeah, actually just do this. I liked all those things because it is just kind of like you're playing with Barbies, like, is how I took it. And and I thought that they built the world enough to, and they kind of get clued in enough that of how it worked, even though it doesn't quite make sense, in terms of like what affects what on the outside. But it kind of like, yeah, at the end of the day, they're self-aware, or they act self-aware enough to be like, it doesn't matter, but just go with it. And I went with it. And I get,
Yeah, I mean,
mileage may vary on that.
I have a couple thoughts on this. One is that, again, it's not that it doesn't make sense. I don't care if the plot makes sense. I care if that the characters are taking it seriously.
And one last thing, to interrupt you, I actually really cared about Barbie's emotional arc. I was clued in, and Ken's, to be honest, even though they weren't taking the stuff seriously. I was there with Barbie to the very end and stuff, and she's a good crier too. Like,
Well, look, Margot Robbie and Ryan
Ryan
Gosling
Gosling.
are amazing actors and actresses, and that's one of the
Yeah.
reasons why I was so excited about the movie. I honestly couldn't even tell you what Barbie's arc is. I kind of understand what Ken's is, but honestly, all of it just to me felt poorly dramatized for the reasons that I had said earlier. A lot of it is basically, all right, we're at the 100-minute mark in the script. It's time for Ken to have a revelation, and he just has it, but there's no actual growth. And that's kind of how I feel about most of the movie. But the other thing is that, and I know this is not what you're saying, but I think a lot of people are doing this, is that, people will say that, oh, well, people are taking the Barbie movie too seriously. But, at one point it's like, oh, either the Barbie movie is like really intelligent and quippy, but then as soon as somebody is criticizing it, then, oh, stop taking the Barbie movie so seriously. I think it's basically just a weapon to discredit people that you disagree with. And I'm not saying that you specifically, I don't think you're doing that. Now, I think a lot of what you're saying, I think, can be boiled down to, hey, this is the Barbie movie. It's superficial, and that's appropriate for a Barbie movie. I am not willing to grant it that. I think that the
Okay.
movie fancies itself as something that is a sophisticated auto critique of a consumerist icon that deals in feminine imagery. I think that it thinks and it posits itself as something profound. So I don't buy the whole, well, it's a Barbie movie, so we shouldn't consider it carefully. Because, by the way, Noah Baumbach's last movie, White Noise, is like this super postmodern, hyper cranial thing, and that's what his movies have been in the past. So I just don't buy that argument.
Yeah, well, yeah, like I said, it really is a taste thing, I think, because it's really just, I go back to just the pretending thing. Like, it's I thought that it not taking itself seriously worked for the world that they built in this movie. It's almost like the Lego movie or something. Where you like the Lego movie, right?
Yeah, but I haven't seen it since theaters.
I mean, that's just like the whole thing is just one big meta exploration of Legos and stuff, and it's not taking itself seriously, and it's bending its own rules along the way, but it's like fun because you're going with it, and at the end of the day, it's a Lego movie, so it's like it almost, like, by virtue of it being the Lego movie, you granted a lot of, to me, you can, there's a lot of room to play and do whatever you want, and do a lot of these kind of just non sequitur stuff. Like this is like a very postmodern, post ironic, weird, internet super online movie, which I think Lego Movie is kind of too, and it's cool. I don't know, and it's not like a normal movie, so I don't even grade it on the scale of a normal movie. It's just like a summer blockbuster that's really weird and had a lot of good, fun laughs. So yeah, I don't know. But I get what
Well,
you're
all
saying
of
though.
the
I think it's appropriate to be able to critique it, and I don't think you should. I do think it's kind of weird that people are like, oh, people are so. Well, I think it's weird to get sad about the Barbie movie, but I also think it's weird to poke fun at people that are critiquing the Barbie movie with with good faith.
I mean,
You
I'm
know what I'm
only
saying?
sad about the Barbie movie in as much as I was hoping to like it and didn't like it like any
Yeah,
other movie.
right.
But also, I think I was pretty bummed out after I saw the Barbie movie, and that's why I'm glad that I did the Oppenheimer instead of the Barbenheimer, because I think that I would have been depressed going into Oppenheimer. And the reason why is because, bringing it back to, the whole Barbenheimer phenomenon, to me, it was just amazing that given the lackluster summer and the lackluster couple of years that movies have had financially, and with this strike going on and the whole future of the industry in flux, it was so cool that basically the culture willed this holiday about going to the movies. And
Yeah,
so,
it
of
is
course, I
cool.
was going to do it. And I found that it was I really wanted both movies, and I wanted this event to be something that everybody could enjoy. And I understand that some people are also unhappy with the politics of Oppenheimer. I think it's much less prevalent than the discourse around Barbie, but I really wanted both movies to be something that everyone could enjoy. And I found that Barbie was perhaps deliberately inflammatory to, at least half of the country. And whether you think that half of the country is a bunch of deplorables or not, I mean, at the end of the day, I found that I thought Oppenheimer was a much more humanist thing. These are problems that everyone faces, the threat of nuclear war, the risks of the nuclear age. These are something that all of us can inhabit. But if you're going to base an entire movie on, gender politics analysis, it's obviously going to cater to certain people and not others. And that was just kind of a bummer for me, because I really wanted this to be a celebration for everybody.
Well, a point on that, and I think that maybe this is just a hypothesis that this had something to do with our different reactions to the movie. You said you saw it in a theater basically full of like, didn't you say 7 or 10 like preteen girls, right? And
It
what was
wasn't
it?
all of them, but it seemed like it was a lot of moms, a lot of teenagers. It
Okay.
wasn't it wasn't internet nerds.
So I saw it in a theater full of internet nerds at Man Chinese, in a smaller theater, but it was totally, yeah, just people like in their whole crew full of pink, suits and stuff. No kids. I didn't see one kid, and which I do think this movie is for the crowd I was with and not your crowd. Like, I do not think this is a fucking kids movie. And really,
But I
you're like,
think
do
kids are
you?
gonna. I mean,
I mean, they're clearly going to because it's the Barbie movie. But I think that,
right.
like, if you were to ask me, who is this movie? What is the target audience? I think it's like older people that played with Barbies when they were kids and they remember it, and they're also, hip on culture shit, whatever you want to call it.
Well, that's what I thought, and that's what I would consider myself. But I found it to be, well, yeah, I don't really know how to put it. I mean, I think that kids are gonna like it because it's colorful, and because there are
Right.
jokes, and the acting's very good, and there are some cool effects. And I think that really, I think I'm just the wrong audience for it, just frankly. And again, like, a
Yeah.
lot of it has to do with my very
Fine.
unique reaction to the works of Baumbach, which I've just never been able to enjoy. And
I feel
Gerwig,
like you're
I'm,
giving it
I'm
more credit in this thing. I feel like this is a Greta Gerwig written and directed movie that she got her husband slash partner or whatever that I'm
oh, I
married
didn't
to.
even know they were together.
Yeah, they're together to basically co-write it with her, and he just kind of came in. He probably helped her with the kin parts. I think I would give most of this credit of this whole thing to Greta Gerwig.
Yeah. Well, we're
So
guessing. I mean, I would just say again that some
right,
of the reasons that I don't like his previous work, I also detected in this. And then
sure,
that's really all I'm saying.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess any last thoughts before should we go to Oppenheimer, or how did you want to structure this?
No, yeah, let's talk more about Oppenheimer.
All right, needed more bombs. Give me more explosions, baby.
Well,
It's three
I mean, I think
hours.
that's part of the flex of the movie, right? That it's a movie in which it's just people talking, and it's pretty captivating for most of it. I will
No, for
say
sure. I mean,
that
I'm half
I will.
kidding, but I would have liked more bombs.
I mean, did you what did you think about the Robert Downey Jr. plot? Not his performance, but the fact that there was so much emphasis on his perspective.
I did not care for that. Not that he did great, and that whole part was interesting. It's not that it's not interesting. It's just that there was just so much of it, and I'm like, and I talked about this in the Funhouse podcast too, where there's kind of a debate on, not a debate, but it's a very interesting choice that obviously it's all from Oppenheimer's perspective, so you don't see anything in Hiroshima, Nagasaki. You're totally with him, and that's cool. And I get why he did it, like we're with him, and so it's almost like, and he's thought about all the repercussions, but he's not actually seeing it with his own mind. He just hears that it happened on the radio, basically, which is interesting. But at the same time, there was parts of me during the movie, like you said, it kind of certain parts you were like, man, this is dragging. And like we'd already seen the bomb get dropped, so it's like there's no more bomb really. We've heard of this other bomb that's happened in the background. We're not seeing anything to do with it. You just literally hear about it in the background. And I kind of am like, man, I wish kind of we were over there.
Well, you
But I'm
mean
like,
the H bomb or the
yeah,
Russians testing the bomb?
no, I'm talking about like Hiroshima and stuff. But then,
Oh, that.
yeah, all that. So, but then I'm like, well, fuck, I don't, then I'm having a moral quandary in my head. Well, shit, do I want to actually see that dramatized on screen? So, I mean, whatever. But I felt like putting so much emphasis at the end on this security clearance being taken away was, I'm like, all right, at the end of the day, I found myself not caring about that as much, even though I know that we can break down why that matters and why it's,
See, well, this is, I think, a really interesting contrast to Barbie because here we have characters taking something really seriously, and
Mhm.
honestly, for the most of the movie, I didn't even know what was at stake. I mean, I guess I vaguely knew that it was his personal and political viability, but I guess that's the point. Like the plot, and this is more to Nolan's thing about you don't need to hear the specifics of the dialogue because to him, as long as let's just say if everyone is crying and looking at an object, we don't even need to see the object. We don't need to understand the object because we understand the impact of the object. My point being that this is a movie that, in contrast to the Barbie movie, and by the way, there's really almost stylistically and thematically, the movies are very different. There's no real reason why they should be similar. I'm just pointing out that
Yeah.
in one of them, they take the plot very seriously, and in the other one, it's the fact that there is a plot is a joke.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I want to bring
There's
up,
room in the world for both.
yeah, the other thing I want to bring up is that somebody in the Discord, in my Discord, told me that Nolan, I think it was the words of Nolan, he said that the story between Strauss and Oppenheimer was like the story of Mozart and Salieri from Amadeus. And I didn't get that at all.
Me neither.
Although at the end of the movie, you get it. You understand, because that's the thing. It's like at the end of the movie, they reveal that Strauss is the guy behind this conspiracy to get his security clearance taken away. And I think that that reveal, first of all, was not very surprising. So I think that that should have been introduced or revealed a lot earlier because, in Amadeus, it's one of the first things that's established is that Salieri is riddled with envy and resentment for Mozart. But we don't really explicitly know that until the very end of Oppenheimer. So if that was really what the movie was supposed to feel like, if it was supposed to be a story about resentment and revenge, you really only put that together retroactively once at the end you find out that the architect of Oppenheimer's doom is Strauss.
And that's the thing, is that I do feel like the revenge thing is interesting, and and also I found the Albert Einstein speech very interesting at the end. He's like, yeah, that when they need you, you're a hero. then they get rid of you, and then later on when they're remembering, they want to feel good about themselves, so they call you a hero again. I thought that was pretty cool, but like it was the amount of screen time paid to this. Yeah, we like kind of this supposed big reveal that, oh my god, he's the one behind the security clearance, and he's destroying his reputation. And in my mind, I'm like, I like the theme of this one guy's reputation getting ruined, after he did the H bomb and started being a anti-war or whatever, like was way could have been 15-20 minutes and would have been interesting. But the fact that it was built up to this big thing was way less interesting than all the bomb shit we had just gone through, and the implications of, oh, I'm the guy that dropped, that it ultimately is responsible for the bomb dropped on Hiroshima and stuff. I just thought there was not enough Hiroshima, and we don't need to go there. And I hate to review a movie being like, well, this is what I would have done, but like maybe it's just because when it was dragging in the last hour about the fucking trial, I was just kind of being like, what would I be doing here at this part of the movie, and what is more interesting to me? It's definitely not really this trial, that could have been a side note, I feel like.
Yeah, I brought this up a little bit in the video I just released about Oppenheimer, but yeah, it was an interesting choice not to show Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and even again not to. There's that scene where Oppenheimer is looking at the results of the fallout, and we're to assume they're pretty horrifying images of people suffering, and we don't see the screens; we see his reaction. But you know what? That's kind of the weird thing about this movie. That on the one hand, we can justify that decision because the movie is all about inhabiting Oppenheimer's perspective. The movie is all about using sound and cutting to make us feel like we're in Cillian Murphy's headspace. So we hear about the bomb in the same way that the character does, just on the radio. But then when we see him looking at the images of the fallout, we actually don't see what he sees. We only see his reaction. And I'm sure that decision was made because they wanted to be tactful, and I think it's I think it's effective. But the interesting thing is, like, for a movie that's so obsessed with placing you in the subjectivity of a character that you understand, the other half of the movie with Strauss really does not achieve that. It's the black and white things. Like, we see scenes happening, but we really don't identify with Strauss. Like, in fact, it took me a while after the movie to even understand that, like, I mean, I knew that the black and white sections were the story of Strauss, but I never really understood, and I still don't think you can really justify it that well to say that the black and white sections are Strauss's subjectivity, because it felt very objective to me. I didn't really feel like I understood Strauss's headspace because, as we said before, we don't even know his motivation until the reveal at the end. So again, for a movie to be so concerned with inhabiting a subjectivity to stop that, but then kind of we're meant to believe that we were supposed to be inhabiting both characters' subjectivity throughout the movie. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
I mean, is that what you thought? Is that during the black and white scenes we're supposed to be in Strauss's eyes?
Well, I just took that as his storyline in terms of, by Strauss's eyes, it's not like they were doing as many weird hallucinatory effects or anything with Robert Downey Jr.'s character. It's still pretty shot, like you just said, pretty objectively. Yeah. But I don't know.
Well, because it's lifted right from Memento, where Memento had those scenes in black and white where it was Leonard talking to the audience and kind of confessing his backstory, and then in the color version, we see the narrative unfold like the main narrative. It was like an A and B plot kind of, and then they converge at the end. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's hard for me to complain because the scenes with Robert Downey Jr. are all so good, but it's definitely a strong choice that I don't really think it's helpful for me to guess what his intentions were, but if his intentions were to make it a Mozart Salieri story, I don't think that was successful.
Oh, definitely not. No.
Yeah.
I kind of said it earlier, but did you get old boy vibes from just, like you slighted me 7 years ago in this one little thing that I took as a big deal, and I'm gonna, I'll make you pay later on.
Yeah, I did not think of that, but I would, and not to be
I'm not
too
saying that
self
you thought
promote.
about it
No,
either, but
no, no, no. I know, but not to be too self promoting. I don't know. In my video about Oppenheimer, basically the way I interpreted that is that the movie is about chain reactions, both in physics and his personal life, and so the chain reaction of the uranium plutonium fission on the one hand, and on the other hand, the chain reaction of him just calling him a lowly shoe salesman and supposedly turning Einstein against him, does after 7 years lead to this conspiratorial plotting.
huh. All right, that's kind of a cool way to tie
And
it all together.
it's the same thing with his romance with Florence Pugh, who, by the way, I think she was great in the movie.
I thought she was great too, and I feel like there's some criticisms, that she wasn't given a lot to do except just be Oppenheimer's sex object.
Well,
But
that's the
like she
point,
did great
right?
as that, and every single sex scene I love for different reasons. I love the interrogation room one that cracked me up.
I don't know if it was supposed to.
I know, but still, it's just the imagery of it all. And then the other one when he's sitting there with his legs crossed, all funny, that one actually kind of made me laugh too. And then the third one, they all made me laugh when she's making him read Sanskrit and reads the I will whatever. I'm the demon god of the universe, whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
Destroyer of worlds.
I used to say that the idea of Christopher Nolan directing a sex scene was one of the most scary things of ever, because he's just too cranial and he could never really do it. And even here, all of them were pretty short. But at the same time, I feel like, all right, the guy's going outside of his comfort zone. He's trying to be sexy. Good for him.
And
But
also another thing I took with that is just the sex and bombs that go together. I don't know, just from a primal
sex and death, baby.
primal sense. And there was one other thing I was going to bring up. We had this discussion on the Funhouse podcast. Was there taking a poll? Could you see Cillian Murphy's dong in the interrogation room sex scene shot?
I did not see it. I don't know if you.
I did not see it either. Lindsay at work at Funhouse said she clear as day saw dong. So
okay,
we need to figure that out.
Yeah, really important. The one thing I want to say is that you mentioned that Florence Pugh's barely in the movie, and I think that's by design, in that a lot of the movie's about a guy who has these ideas, and the ideas, or he loses control of the intent of what he does. With the A bomb, turns into the H bomb, turns into an arm race. There's this chain reaction that he loses control of, and he's like a relatively thoughtless guy. He tells Strauss that he's a lowly shoe salesman, doesn't realize that that's going to have horrible implications later. And it's the same thing with Florence Pugh. She feels like an afterthought, even though he tells her, "I'll always pick up your calls," and he just doesn't really think much about it. And then she ends up killing herself. She is this afterthought that has horrible consequences that go beyond the grasp of his intentions.
Yeah, I can see that. And then obviously there's the Apple thing at the beginning. He just carelessly does that, which
right.
could have set off a whole other chain reaction in his life, but he saved it.
Yeah. I wanted to ask one last thing before we go. So we talk, and this is going back to Barbie, and we mentioned a little bit how one of the things that I see a similarity between Barbie and another movie, and that is that if somebody likes it, people will make the accusation that you can only like it because it mirrors your politics. And I think there's an interesting thing going on where Barbie is like the cultural left version of that, and then the one on the cultural right recently is Sound of Freedom. Have you seen it?
I haven't yet. No.
I haven't seen it either.
Are you going to?
I don't know if I'm going to pay for it, but I am curious.
I'm very curious too. I'm going to see it, but I'm scared.
What have you heard about it? I mean, do you know anyone who's seen it?
Yeah, I do know a fair amount of people that have seen it. I'm from the fucking South, and it's taking over, dude. It's crazy. It's like in a weird, scary way. Like, I don't know. Like, I haven't read enough about it I'm not an expert on this thing at all, but like, do you know anything about it?
Well, I know that it's about child trafficking, and I know that people have been saying that it's saturated with QAnon conspiracy. But again, like, I don't know if that's just because, well, QAnon has a child trafficking angle to it. These guys are Christians that are outside of Hollywood. Therefore, I'm just, people do these very mean spirited things when there are ideas out there that violate their politics. So I don't know if this is just, another attempt to kind of own the other side of the culture war, or if it actually is a QAnon thing.
No, I think it's the it's this one guy's story, that some people whatever called into question. I don't fucking know, but like uh but then the QAnon stuff, you know, yeah, like the people involved have said crazy shit. So, I think people are trying to talk shit about that. In terms of whether that makes, to me at the end of the day, it's like, is it an entertaining movie? Is all I care about. You know what I mean? And I have no idea. So
Definitely.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna
I
quit.
don't know. And that could be the case, but I think that that's really the double feature of the summer is
Is Barbie and Sound of
Barbie and
Freedom?
Sound of Freedom,
Yeah.
because chances are if you have, one of the many cognitive biases going around about the culture war, one of those movies is going to make you pissed off.
Yeah, I can see that. But I feel like, I don't know, maybe just personal thing. It doesn't. It takes a lot to bother me with these movies, and unless and even with the Barbie one, where I gave it a lot of slack. It's a movie at the end of the day. Its mission is to entertain. Doesn't mean you can't be critical of
Sure.
it, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Agreed. All right. Any closing thoughts about the Barbenheimer cultural event?
My projector went out during Barbie during the
What?
I'm Ken dance sequence, the Grease dance sequence. I thought it was part of the movie for a second. That was kind of weird. And then they backed it up 10 minutes before that, and we rewatched 10. We had to rewatch 10 minutes of Barbie again to get to the point where it stopped. So that fucking sucked. But we got free tickets because of it, so that was cool.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
I think that might be it. I had a great, yeah. I really hope that Hollywood learns the right lessons from this. Give filmmakers lots of money that have cool, interesting, unique, original ideas, and let them go crazy, and try to line them up with weird contrasting movies like this one, so we can have different double features that are crazy and get people psyched for movies. Any novel thing to get people to the fucking movies. I can't tell you how many people I know that are just like so over movies, and it's so depressing,
Oh,
and
I know.
going to the movie theater. And so this was like the first time they've gone to see something in forever. So we need more shit like that. All right,
I
enjoy it.
agree. I mean, I'm afraid that it's just, these kind of viral marketing things are impossible to replicate. It's impossible. It just kind of has to happen organically.
For sure. But
I mean,
let's do it organically as a people.
I try not to be too cynical here, but I think that, in the minds of the industry people, they're just like Barbie. Okay, it's like Sonic and Sonic 2. It's just more IP, more IP, more IP. Mario, Sonic, Barbie. I think that that speaks more than necessarily art house directors. And neither of these
What
ideas
year
are
we're at?
original.
So say that again. I
I
guess.
said neither of these ideas are original.
Oh, Barbie and
Like,
Oppenheimer.
yeah, I mean, Barbie is just I mean, it's a toy. It's a piece of IP that's no different than the god awful Battleship movie that came out in 2012 or whatever.
I know, but like I guess I would liken the Barbie movie back to the Lego movie. We've talked about this before on our Lego movie podcast. So we talked about getting show me the meaning. Where if you're forced to make a movie based on IP, make it kind of in the vein of something that's super fun, unique, original, refreshing take on it, whatever you want to call it, like a Lego movie, like a Barbie, and not like a Sonic. um,
I haven't
uh,
seen Sonic 2, but I'll
Sonic's
just
fine.
say
That's probably not the best example either. I guess, and I hear Mario movie is good, so I don't know what a good example is. But then Oppenheimer, at least it's like, it's a bold, visionary take on historical material. So I guess that's all I mean.
Sure.
Cool, bold takes.
Yeah. Uh, Before we go, also just any movies in 2023 that you feel strongly about that have come
Um,
out.
so at the top of my list, I just revised my list. At the top was No Hard Feelings. I really like that movie, the
I
Jennifer
don't think I
Lawrence
know what
movie.
that is.
Jennifer Lawrence
Oh,
sex
yeah. I
comedy.
haven't seen it.
I really liked it. I think you would like it too. It's great. It's just a fun time with movies. That movie was awesome. That was at the top, but now number one, I have unfortunately Jared Barbie
Hey,
is
it's
my
not
number one
unfortunate.
for you, I guess.
If you
Um,
enjoyed it, great.
I had a great time, but I will say that even No Hard Feelings and even Barbie, I would say compared to last year, that like last year these would have been in the middle of my pack or closer to the front, but closer to the front half, but middle of the pack, because last year was just such a stellar, awesome year for movies. This year I feel like it's been, at least so far, it's only July, kind of sucked in my opinion. There really hasn't been anything I loved.
Did you see Mission Impossible?
Not yet,
Oh, okay.
but
Well, I love that.
you loved it. All right. Did
Well,
you have
I
you
mean,
seen
it's not the best Mission Impossible, but everything you expect from a Tom Cruise Mission Impossible movie, you're going to get, and it's going to be a really fun 2.5 hours.
Okay, well, honestly, that's good to hear from you because I'd only kind of heard meh things. Adam, our mutual friend, gave it a meh. So, we'll
Okay.
see. I think I'm going to like it just like you. And I know you're a Tom Cruise head.
Yeah.
A movie that I think you got to see. Have you seen Sick of Myself?
No, I've never even heard of it.
Okay, put that on your list of movies
Okay.
that I and don't read anything about it. Go in blind. It's, I think, a fuck Belgium movie. I might be totally wrong on that. It's a
Okay.
foreign film, but
Okay.
watch it. It's I think it's right up your alley. A lot of juicy themes to think about. You know,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree. This movie this year, I mean, the only movies I feel like I've seen in theaters that are new is I saw the Mario movie, I saw John Wick 4, I saw Mission Impossible, and I'm trying to think if there's. I didn't even see Spider Verse. Did you see that?
I went to it, but I fell asleep in it, so I can't really say saw it. But I
Okay.
liked what I saw. I thought what I saw was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I didn't see it. And gosh,
Did you
yeah, it
see
has been a
Fast
pretty.
X?
No, I haven't seen any Fast and the Furious movies since like Fast One.
I had a great time at Fast X. That was
Yeah.
awesome. And then Megan, I thought was pretty great.
Oh, I did see that. Yeah, I mean that was a surprise. It was better than expected.
And another one I want to give you to Reality. I kind of like that, the HBO movie about Reality Winner, the whistleblower, but they do it in this really cool way where it's a reenactment, dramatization, whatever you want to call it, of the interrogation minutes of her interrogation from the FBI, like in the 1 hour in like real time.
Okay, cool.
So I kind of like that.
You know, I've been just watching a lot of old movies. The Helsinki Library, which is basically my church, it has a theater that sells really cheap movie tickets, and they've been doing a Scorsese retrospection.
Oh
So
yeah.
I've seen, I saw Mean Streets, I saw Who's That Knocking on My Door, I saw Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, I saw The Last Temptation of Christ, I saw Goodfellas,
Damn, dude.
I saw After Hours. I'm trying to go to every one.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I would love to. I haven't seen any of those in the movie theater, which I bet that they'd all be different. I don't love After Hours. Did you love After Hours?
No,
Yeah.
and it was only the second time I'd seen it, and the reason I wanted to go is because, well, like I only remember this movie a little bit, but yeah, overall, I I know there are people who love it, and I didn't really get it. I didn't really get the
Yeah.
love.
I'm so on Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. You?
That one I liked. I just think that Ellen Burstyn and the person who plays her son are just great together.
Yeah. And then I really love Mean Streets.
I love Mean Streets too. That's actually one of De Niro's best performances that I
Yeah.
think is underappreciated. Who's That Knocking on My Door? I did not like.
It's the beginning. It's his first movie. I think it's cool to see, like, where he came from.
Yeah, but it's really him. I just want to be John Cassavetes.
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
like John Cassavetes.
but he's better than him now. So it's just nice to see him develop past his idol.
I love not love, but I'm going to love Killers of the Flower Moon. I can tell you that.
I can't wait.
That's
Can't
my
wait.
number one.
You know what was awesome in a theater was The Last Temptation of Christ. Was
Well, I was
so
just
good
about
in
to
a
ask you about
theater.
that. Yeah, because I do really like that movie, but I would like to see how it would be in the movie theater. I'd probably like it more.
Yeah, I mean Willem Dafoe is so good, and Harvey Keitel is so good. It was a wonderful movie going
Robert De
experience.
Niro
Like
is good in that.
Robert De Niro. Who is Robert De Niro play?
Isn't he
Oh,
Judas?
he. Wait, no, that's Harvey Keitel.
It is?
Yeah,
Oh, well, fuck.
yeah.
Then yeah,
Because
okay.
remember, like
That's what I mean.
De Niro was offered the role of Jesus, and he said nobody's going to believe me as Jesus, and turned it down.
Okay.
Yeah, but when one day you come visit Finland, that's what we'll do. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up.
All right,
Ryan,
man.
thank you so much for hanging out, man. I
Yeah, it was
hope there
fun.
are more movie-going holidays that we can celebrate together.
I would love to. Let's do it sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. All right, brother. Take it easy.
All right, dude. Yeah, congratulations again. Tell the wife I
Thanks,
said what's
man.
up.
All right.
All
Later.
right, see ya.